Asterisk. For years, the galaxy whispered the same rumor. That Earth had finally gone silent. No ships, no signals, no warnings, but the silence wasn't surrender. It was preparation, and when humanity finally spoke again, it wasn't with words, it was with something so powerful that every starfaring empire realized the same terrible truth. Earth had never gone quiet. Earth had simply outgrown fear. Asterisk, the silent years, the collective had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. They were not conquerors in the traditional sense. They were administrators, bureaucrats who believed that order was the highest virtue and chaos the greatest sin. When they discovered humanity in the year 2247, they observed Earth for exactly 30 years before making their judgment. The report was filed by observer Prime Talvek, a being whose species had served the collective for 6 millennia. He watched humans build and destroy, love and hate, create art and wage war. He watched them split atoms and reach for the stars with primitive chemical rockets. He found them fascinating at first, then concerning, then ultimately intolerable. Humans were chaos incarnate. They refused to accept limitations. They questioned everything. They built societies based on individual freedom rather than collective efficiency. Worse, they were spreading. Mars had been colonized. Ships were being built for longer journeys. Within a few centuries, humans would be scattered across dozens of systems, and chaos would spread with them. Talvek's recommendation was simple and final. Humanity represented a fundamental threat to galactic order. They must be eliminated before they could contaminate other species with their dangerous ideas about liberty and self-determination. The collective council debated for exactly 1 hour. They voted unanimously. Earth would be cleansed. The order was given on a Monday morning. By Friday evening, Earth was a smoking ruin. 600 collective warships had surrounded the planet and fired without warning. Cities vanished in pillars of light. Oceans boiled away at their edges. The atmosphere itself burned. 9 billion humans died in 72 hours. The collective recorded the action as Case Resolution 4478B and moved on to other administrative matters, but the collective had made a mistake. They had assumed that destroying the homeworld meant destroying the species. They had not investigated thoroughly enough. They had not asked the right questions. When Earth burned, 3 million humans were scattered across 47 locations the collective had deemed too worthless to survey properly. Research stations hidden in asteroid fields, colony ships crawling toward distant stars at sublight speeds, mining operations on moons and dwarf planets that appeared on no official charts, scientific outposts studying phenomena the collective considered irrelevant. These survivors had no fleet. They had no weapons capable of challenging the collective's might. They had no realistic hope of revenge. What they had was time, and they had rage that burned cold and patient and absolute. Commander Sarah Chen was born 3 years after Earth died. Her mother had been a fusion engineer stationed on Titan when the bombardment began. Her father had been on Earth teaching literature at a university in what used to be called Shanghai. Sarah grew up on a converted cargo hauler called the Second Chance, moving between hidden colonies and listening to stories about a world she would never see. She learned about blue skies from recordings. She learned about oceans from data files. She learned about forests and cities and the smell of rain from the memories of people who were slowly dying from grief. The survivors called it the ache, that constant hollow feeling of having lost something so fundamental that breathing itself felt wrong. By the time Sarah was 20, she was piloting supply runs between the hidden colonies. By 30, she was commanding military operations, though calling them military was generous. Humanity's combined forces consisted of 19 modified cargo vessels and about 12,000 fighters scattered across dozens of worlds, against the collective's millions of ships and trillions of loyal subjects. It was nothing, but Sarah and the other commanders were not preparing for a conventional war. They had spent 80 years studying the collective, learning their systems, understanding their weaknesses. The collective had grown complacent over 12 millennia. Their security was designed to prevent uprisings from subject species who might steal a ship or attack a garrison. It was not designed to stop an enemy who could move unseen for decades and strike from angles that should not exist. Human scientists had discovered something that Collective's rigid thinking had prevented them from finding. Space could be folded in ways that were not supposed to be possible. Ships could travel through dimensions that official Collective physics said did not exist. Weapons could strike through barriers that were thought to be impenetrable. The key was not following the rules that everyone else accepted. The Remnant Coalition, humanity's government called itself, met in a hollowed-out asteroid called Haven. Representatives from all 47 colonies attended. Some in person and some through quantum communications the Collective could not detect. Sarah stood before them and looked at faces that carried 80 years of patient fury. For 80 years, she said, we have hidden, we have survived, we have prepared. The Collective believes we are extinct. They filed our destruction away and never thought about us again. They do not know we exist. They do not know we are coming. They do not know what we have built. She activated the holographic display. It showed the galaxy with red markers indicating Collective strongholds and green markers showing where human agents had infiltrated over 8 decades. There were thousands of green markers scattered like seeds across Collective territory. We are not going to fight them the way they expect, Sarah continued. We are not going to mass our ships and attack their fleets. We are going to hit them everywhere at once. We are going to destroy their communications, cripple their logistics, and show every species they have conquered that the Collective can bleed. Elder Marcus, the oldest survivor who actually remembered Earth, raised his weathered hand. Commander Chun, he said, his voice carrying the weight of decades. Some of us will not survive to see the end of this. Some of us have waited too long already. Tell us plainly, is it time? Sarah looked at the faces around her. Young and old, born on Earth and born in exile, united by loss and purpose. Yes, she said. After 80 years of silence, it is time. The Collective thought Earth died quietly. They were wrong. We are about to make them understand just how wrong they were. The vote was unanimous. Across 47 hidden colonies, 3 million humans began to move. They did not announce themselves. They did not send warnings. They moved like shadows, like whispers, like the ghosts the Collective had tried to create. The Collective had destroyed Earth in 72 hours. Humanity had spent 80 years preparing their response. The galaxy was about to learn the difference between making someone quiet and making them gone. The awakening storm. The first strike happened on a Tuesday afternoon at Communications Relay Station, Theta 9, a massive facility orbiting a gas giant on the edge of Collective territory. The station processed data from 300 systems, coordinating everything from military deployments to civilian traffic. It was considered absolutely secure, protected by defensive platforms and a garrison of 2,000 Collective soldiers. The attack lasted 7 minutes. Human strike teams appeared inside the station through methods the defenders could not comprehend. They moved through corridors with precision that spoke of months of planning, targeting specific systems with surgical accuracy. By the time the garrison realized they were under attack, the damage was already catastrophic. The humans withdrew as mysteriously as they had arrived, leaving behind a station that was completely intact but utterly useless. Every communication system had been corrupted with code that would take months to purge. Every backup system contained the same infection. And on every screen throughout the facility, a single message played on repeat. We remember Earth. We are still here. Across the galaxy, similar strikes were happening simultaneously. Supply depots exploded. Shipyards went dark. Military bases found their weapons systems locked down by code that should not exist. Collective fleets tried to respond but discovered their coordination networks were failing in cascading waves. Over the course of 6 hours, humanity hit 273 targets across Collective space. The Collective had not fought a real war in 4,000 years. They had crushed rebellions and eliminated problem species. But They had never faced an enemy who struck from everywhere at once with technology that defied understanding. Their response was chaos dressed up as military precision. Observer Prime Talvek, now elevated to Council Administrator. Watch the reports flow into the Central Command on Unity Prime, the collective's capital world. His expression remained calm, but inside he felt something he had not experienced in his 600 years of life. Fear, not fear of death, but fear that the order he had spent centuries maintaining was crumbling. What are these humans using? He demanded. Their technology was primitive 80 years ago. How are they penetrating our defenses? The military coordinator, a being named Solvex, manipulated the holographic display with 4 of his 6 arms. We do not know, Administrator. Their ships appear and disappear without using conventional hyperspace. Their weapons ignore our shields. Our best scientists are analyzing the data. But nothing makes sense according to established physics. Established physics? Talvek repeated slowly. He remembered the report he had filed 80 years ago. Humans had been studying theoretical sciences the collective considered useless. They had been asking questions about the nature of space and time that proper civilizations had stopped asking millennia ago. What if they found answers we never looked for because we assumed we already knew everything? Before Solvex could respond, every screen in the command center flickered and went dark. Then they lit up again, showing a human face. She was middle-aged with short dark hair and eyes that burned with controlled intensity. Behind her stood others, humans and a few members of species that were supposed to be loyal collective subjects. My name is Commander Sarah Chen. The woman said. Her voice was calm, almost conversational, as if she were discussing something mundane rather than declaring war on the most powerful force in the galaxy. 80 years ago, your council decided that humanity was too chaotic to be allowed to exist. You destroyed our world in 72 hours. 9 billion people died. You filed it as an administrative action and forgot about us. She paused, and something dangerous flickered across her face. We did not forget you. We spent 80 years learning everything about you. Your systems, your weaknesses, your complacency. You believed you were untouchable. You were wrong. The display changed, showing footage of the attacks happening across collective space. Hundreds of targets going dark, supply lines severing, the carefully maintained order dissolving into confusion. This is not revenge, Sarah continued. Revenge would be glossing your worlds the way you glossed ours. This is something different. This is a lesson. You rule through fear and overwhelming force. You crush anyone who questions your authority. You maintain order by making everyone too afraid to resist. But fear only works if people believe you are invincible. She smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. You are not invincible? We've proven that today. Every species you have conquered is watching right now. They are seeing that the collective can be hurt. They are learning that resistance is possible. Talvek felt his heart beating faster. This human was not just attacking military targets. She was attacking something more fundamental. She was attacking the idea of collective supremacy itself. We are not asking for your surrender, Sarah said. We are not demanding territory or resources. We want something simpler. We want you to leave us alone. We want you to stop crushing species that think differently than you do. We want you to understand that order built on fear is not order at all. It is just tyranny wearing a bureaucratic mask. She leaned forward and her voice dropped to something colder. You thought you silenced Earth. You were wrong. Earth screamed, and we carried that scream inside us for 80 years. Now the whole galaxy is going to hear it. This is just the beginning. Every day you continue your oppression, we will be there. Every time you try to crush free thought, we will resist. You made us into ghosts. Now we are going to haunt you until you change or until you fall. The transmission ended. Screens across the collective command center returned to their normal displays, showing the chaos spreading through collective space. Talvek stood in silence, understanding with terrible clarity what had just happened. The humans had not started a war. They had started an awakening. Within hours, reports began flooding in from across collective territory. Subject species were asking questions they had never dared ask before. Workers were refusing orders. Garrison commanders were reporting unrest. The iron grip the collective had maintained for 12,000 years was loosening, and it was happening faster than anyone had imagined possible. On Unity Prime, the collective council convened an emergency session. They debated responses, discussed military options, analyzed strategies. But underneath all their discussions was a truth they could not ignore. The humans had proven that the collective could be challenged, and once that knowledge existed, it could never be erased. In hidden bases across the galaxy. Sarah Chen watched the reports with careful satisfaction. The military strikes had been successful, but they were never the real weapon. The real weapon was hope. For 12,000 years, the collective had convinced everyone that resistance was impossible. Humanity had just shown them otherwise. The war was not over. It was just beginning. But the collective would never again be able to claim they were untouchable. The ghosts of Earth had returned, and they had brought a message that would echo across every world in the galaxy. Freedom was possible. Change was possible. And sometimes the species that refused to stay silent were the ones that changed everything. The galaxy trembled. And in that trembling, something new began to grow.